Now, let's go ahead and look at how we'd go about subnetting an IPv6 address. Normally, if an ISP is going to assign an IPv6 address, they will give it a minimum of a 48-bit prefix. Basically, what that means is when an ISP gives you a IPv6 address, at a minimum, the first 48 bits of that IP address need to be used for the network ID. The remaining 80 bits can then be used for host IDs. While ISPs will give a minimum of a 48-bit prefix, RFC 4291 recommends that you should really have a minimum of 64-bit prefix. What that means is, according to RFC 4291, the first 64 bits of a 128-bit IPv6 address should be used for network, and the remaining should be used for the host ID. The only exception to this rule in the RFC 4291 recommendation is that the loopback has to use all 128 bits for the prefix. What that means is you are not allowed to subnet a loopback IPv6 address. Let's go ahead and look at the example that we had earlier. This long IPv6 address we looked at previously. If we took that IP address and set it up with a prefix of 48, for example, this is what it would look like. The number 48 comes from the fact that the first three 16-bit boundaries are used for the network ID. If we went with the RFC recommendation, the address would then look like this: 3FFD:2093:0000/64. However, because of the rules that allow us to reduce the length of an IPv6 address when there are multiple leading zeros, we can actually reduce this value to this. So we end up with 3FFD:2093:0:0/64. Any other IPv6 subnet you would come across would be presented in exactly the same manner. Let's go ahead and pretend we received the subnet from an ISP. What would we do with it? Well, the first thing we would do is, after receiving the subnet from the ISP, we'd take the first 16 bits after the prefix that the ISP gave us and set that up for something called a site ID. The 16-bit site ID would allow for a possibility of 65,536 sites that we could set up using the IPv6 address we got from our ISP. Also, let's go ahead and use the 64-bit prefix that required by RFC 4291, and that would mean that once we got the IP address from our ISP, we'd add 16 more bits to that, so our prefix will change from a /64 to a /80. Using the previous IPv6 address we looked at, if we had a /80 prefix, it would look like this. The remaining 48 bits would then be able to be used for host IDs. 48 bits for host IDs means that we can have 281,474,976,701,656 unique host IDs.